The first time she rejected me, it felt like a door slamming shut in the middle of my chest. Not a polite no. Not even an awkward smile. Just a cold, sharp sentence that hung in the air between us like frost. Don't waste my time. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The calmness in her tone somehow hurt more than anger ever could. For a moment, I just stood there on the cracked concrete path between our houses, holding the ridiculous bouquet my friend had forced into my hands, wondering how a simple dare had turned into something that suddenly felt so painfully real. I could still hear my friend's laughter echoing in my mind from earlier that evening, when everything had seemed like a joke. We had been sitting on the hood of his car outside the convenience store, killing time like we usually did on Friday nights. He had been the one who noticed her first, standing on the small balcony of the house next door to mine, watering a line of dying plants. "That's your neighbor, right?" he had asked, nudging me with his elbow. I had nodded without thinking much of it. She had moved in a few months earlier. Quiet. Always alone. The kind of person who kept her curtains half closed and her head down when walking to the mailbox. "Go ask her out," my friend had said with a grin. I had laughed, assuming he was joking. He wasn't. "If she says yes, dinner's on me for a week," he had added. "If she says no, you owe me $50. It was stupid. Childish. The kind of thing that sounds funny when you're bored and surrounded by friends who thrive on embarrassment. I should have ignored it. I should have just gone home. But something about the way she stood there on that balcony, tired but graceful, like someone carrying invisible weight, made me curious. So I grabbed a cheap bouquet from the gas station stand, walked across the street, and knocked on her door, and that's how I ended up standing there, hearing the words, "Don't waste my time." If you believe stories about kindness, second chances, and the courage it takes to keep showing up even when the world pushes you away, take a moment right now to like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs a little hope, and subscribe to the channel, The Kindness Chronicles. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the smallest acts of patience can change someone's life. When she closed the door, I stood there for a few seconds longer than necessary, staring at the chipped paint on the wooden frame. It would have been easy to laugh it off and walk away. My friend certainly would have. But something about the way she had said those words stayed with me. Not angry. Not annoyed. Just exhausted. The kind of exhaustion you hear in someone who has already fought too many battles. Over the next few days, I started noticing things I hadn't paid attention to before. She left for work early every morning, before the sun was fully up. She came back late. Sometimes she carried groceries that looked too heavy for one person, yet she never asked for help. Her house was quiet. No visitors. No music. Just the occasional glow of a lamp in the living room late at night. A week passed. Then another. The dare with my friend had already expired, but the moment at her door kept replaying in my mind. So one evening, I did something that probably looked strange from the outside. I walked over to her house again. This time, I didn't bring flowers. Just a small bag of groceries. When she opened the door, the same guarded expression appeared instantly, like a shield sliding back into place. I told her calmly that I wasn't there to waste her time. I had simply noticed she always carried heavy bags from the store, and since I was going anyway, I thought I'd grab a few extra things. She didn't thank me, she didn't smile. But she didn't close the door either. She took the bag silently, looked inside, and after a long pause said something that surprised me. "You're persistent." I shrugged. Then I walked away. Over the next few weeks, something strange began to happen. I didn't ask her out again. Instead, I just stayed. Not in a creepy way. Not waiting outside her house or anything dramatic. I simply started doing small things whenever the opportunity came up. If her trash bin tipped over during windy nights, I set it upright. If a package sat on her porch while she was at work, I moved it under the shade so it wouldn't get soaked by rain. If I shoveled snow from my walkway, I did hers too. Most days, we didn't speak. Sometimes she watched from the window. Sometimes she pretended not to notice. But one evening, about 2 months after the first rejection, she knocked on my door. I opened it expecting maybe a complaint or confusion. Instead, she stood there holding 2 cups of coffee. Her eyes looked softer than before, though the tiredness was still there. She handed me one of the cups without saying much and sat down on the small porch step. For a while, we drank coffee in silence while the sun dipped below the houses. Finally, she asked the question that had probably been building in her mind for weeks. "Why are you doing this?" It was such a simple question, yet I didn't have a rehearsed answer. So I told her the truth. At first, it had been a stupid dare. But after seeing the way she looked when she said not to waste her time, I realized something. People don't usually say that unless their time has been wasted before. Badly. Her hands tightened slightly around the coffee cup when I said that. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then she looked out at the street and said quietly that the last person she trusted had spent 3 years promising things he never meant. When he left, he didn't just break her heart. He left her drowning in debts he had secretly created in her name. She had spent the last year working 2 jobs just to survive. Trusting people, she explained, had become a luxury she could no longer afford. That night was the first time I saw the cracks behind her strong exterior. But I also saw something else. Hope. Very small. Very fragile. The weeks that followed didn't turn into a romantic movie montage. There were no sudden confessions or dramatic kisses in the rain. Instead, there were slow evenings on the porch. Conversations about ordinary things. Shared grocery runs. Quiet laughter over burnt dinners. Little by little, the wall around her began to lower. Not completely. But enough. And then one night, almost 6 months after the day she told me not to waste her time, she looked at me across the table while we were eating takeout noodles and said something that nearly stopped my heart. She admitted that when I first knocked on her door, she had already decided no one would ever get close to her again. But every time I showed up without asking for anything back, it confused her. Eventually, it made her curious. And curiosity slowly turned into something she hadn't felt in a long time. Trust. Not because I said the right things. But because I stayed. The moment felt quiet and powerful at the same time, like watching the first sunrise after a long storm. Years have passed since then. The house next door no longer feels like a separate place. Our porch is shared now. Her plants are alive and thriving. And sometimes we laugh about the ridiculous dare that started everything. But deep down, we both know it wasn't really about a dare. It was about proving that patience can be louder than promises. And that sometimes the best way to show someone you care, is simply refusing to disappear. If this story touched your heart, take a moment right now to like the video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in love that grows slowly, and subscribe to The Kindness Chronicles. Before this video ends, we have one special request for you. Please write a comment sharing a moment when someone's kindness changed your life, or when you chose to stay for someone who needed you. Your story might give hope to someone. Reading the comments today. Because sometimes the smallest acts of patience become the beginning of someone's forever.